I'm the owner and cooking instructor at East Austin Culinary Studio. I've been cooking since I was 14. I've worked in various restaurants. I've owned my own business for a few years. So I've been doing it since I was very young.
What are things that we should be adding to our meals to make them like taste better?
Well, the first thing I would recommend, and this comes a lot in my cooking classes that I have in person, is adding enough salt. So we'll do an exercise where we will make homemade salad dressing, which is just olive oil, citrus, salt, maybe some Dijon mustard. Very simple. And then I'll have them add the amount of salt that they think they should add, and then we all go around it, have our own spoon and taste it, and then we get a new spoon, and then I add salt, and they taste it again. And they're always like, oh, it tasted okay the first time, or they thought it tasted really good the first time. But then when I added in that second layer of salt, they're like, this tastes much better. So I don't think people realize that they're undersalting their food because it's such like a health faux pas to add enough salt into your food. But you can't oversalt food. It'll taste bad, like for the amount that's like recommended by the nutrition world. But they'll add just the tiniest little amount, a couple of crystals like that. And then I come back through with like a chunk of salt. And the thought is like, whatever amount of food you have, think about how many servings that is and add the amount of servings of salt that you think you need per serving. Instead of, I think people will salt per one serving when they have 10 servings of something. So fresh citrus will always kind of awaken your dish a little bit, add it to that next level. You can either add it to marinades, like if you're a little bit of olive oil and some citrus and maybe some garlic, you can marinate any type of meat in that. You could do it that way. After you're done cooking the meat, you could then sprinkle a little citrus on top, just like when you have tacos. You just put a little citrus on top. You could use any citrus. You could use lemon, lime, grapefruit, all that kind of good stuff, oranges. And then you can add it into salad dressings, or you can add it on top of roasted vegetables. When it comes to your tongue, you want to look at the taste buds that you have, right? You've got sweet, you've got salty, you've got bitter, you've got sour. So you want to hit all those flavor profiles in one single bite. And that's kind of the key of like that umami flavor. When you hit that umami flavor, that it's kind of like all the flavors singing together and hitting your tongue like a chorus of music. Otherwise, you're just getting the different elements and spaced out. Like you hear the violin, you hear the drums, you hear this, you hear that, but they're not one cohesive flavor profile. Make sure you have each of those elements in your dish. So for a pasta dish, you want to make sure like the oil and salt and everything will be kind of that savory, salty flavor. Your bitter would probably be some kale maybe. Your sweet might be some fresh tomatoes. And then like cooking that all together to create a sauce. Olive oil makes a big difference. Good olive oil is it's going to be better for you. But it's also going to taste better when you're cooking simple dishes. Because I recommend for beginners, start simple. Don't go too complex. But if you don't have flavorful ingredients to begin with, it's going to be hard to build up flavor profiles going forward. Good olive oil will just taste fresh, have a nice crisp flavor. Sometimes it has sweet undertones. It has nutty undertones. It just depends. And then you want to keep your olive oil in your fridge. So I definitely recommend never using garlic out of a jar. One, if you've ever noticed, it makes your indigestion a lot worse. And I'm not trying to be crude, but like it's a reality. It's not good for your stomach. You can tell your body is not processing it well. And then two, it tastes better. So it's not that, I always get the garlic in the container that's already peeled. I don't care if people, they don't want to use fresh garlic like out of a bowl, right? Mm-hmm. I get that this is an extra step to peel it off, whack it with a knife, get the skin off. It's a thing. But even I use just buy HEB pre-peeled garlic. Fresh herbs. I always have a little container of herbs. Home Depot right now is doing curbside. You can just go purchase a few herbs, put them into a pot, either keep them in your house or outside, half sunlight. And that always makes everything taste better. You've cooked some, you've roasted veggies in the oven. Sprinkle a little fresh basil on top of that. Or as you're roasting, you can put a little bit of oregano onto it. It's just those little things.
The last thing here is smoked paprika. Are we smoking this ourselves, or do you buy it that way?
No, you buy it that way, for sure. So it's a pepper that's been smoked. And this is just one of those things that can give it that nice smoky barbecue, taste of Texas, in my opinion. You can add it into mashed potatoes. You can sprinkle it on veggies as you cook it. You can put it into salad dressings. I put it on top of roasted chicken, any meat, really. So it's really versatile. So I always tell people in classes, you as a beginner, a lot of people have been comparing themselves to Michelangelo in the Sistine Chapel. Like, you can't do that. You can't go from doodles on a paper to the Sistine Chapel overnight. You have to start at the basics in cooking. And I find that a lot of adults find this kind of demoralizing and like beneath them. And they feel really ashamed that they can't cook better and they have to start at the beginning. But you have to start at the beginning and start with those baby steps in order to build flavor profiles. You kind of have to get those basics down. Knife skills, how to sear meat, how to do all these kind of basics. Before you can really cook well. A chef that's owns their own restaurant has been cooking for 15, 20, 30 years. They've been building up these skills for a long time. And even at one point, they had to learn from the beginning as well. So start with that and don't compare yourself to restaurant quality. It's a really high bar.
What are some, beginner recipes that we should be trying out?
I think if you can master breakfast, and eggs, omelets, frittatas, quiches, all that kind of, breakfast sandwiches, things like that, you can build up and learn a lot about timing. Cooking's all about timing. And if you can kind of nail some of those trickier timing ingredients, I think it's easier to build up. And plus, those ingredients aren't as expensive. Eggs are a more affordable approach. So if you kind of mess up, you're like, oh, well, it's okay. This wasn't my best work. I'll try again tomorrow. But you're not out a lot of money. And that's a thing I hear a lot is people are like, but I wasted so much time and money. And you know what? That happens. It happens sometimes. Other beginning recipes, I would start with homemade chicken stock. If you can make homemade chicken stock, you're going to be cruising. Scones, biscuits, and cornbread. Those are all kind of foundational to baking. And then searing, browning meats, and then slow braising them. So cooking them in liquid. So sear them really good, get them all brown and caramelized on the outside, stick it in juice. And when I say juice, I don't mean fruit juice. I mean stick it in some sort of liquid. And then cook it for a couple hours. And then a homemade salad dressing. Learn to make homemade salad dressing. It's olive oil, citrus or vinegar, and then what other herbs and spices and things you have on hand that can build that flavor profile. But really, lemon juice, olive oil, garlic, Dijon mustard, and Parmesan cheese or some sort of cheese if you have it that's hard and dried out. Blend that together in a blender or a stick blender, and that can go on salad, that can go on raw veggies, or you can toss it with vegetables that are going to be roasted in the oven. Batch cooking is where you make one thing and then it can last a couple of days for a couple of meals. Now, people go back and forth on this, to be honest. Some people like batch cooking, some people don't. But in the time of COVID-19, do yourself a favor. Cook once, do dishes once. Save yourself some time. You can cook a whole chicken, cut it up or pick at it throughout the week, and put it into sandwiches, or you can put it into soups, you can put it into stir fries. It's just an easy protein source. Or you can do a huge amount of rice at once. You can freeze half of it, you can save half of it, you can do a lot of different things. And then also just cutting up all your vegetables in batches, it can save you a lot of time. So if you're not, and knife skills are your struggle for you, try to prep all your vegetables at the beginning of the week so you only have to cut them once. And then put them into Ziplocs or put them into containers or put them into whatever you have, silicone bags. Yeah, it's kind of parallel to the tip of where fitness instructors are always put your clothes out the night before. It's kind of like that. Put your ingredients out the night before, get them prepped and ready to go, and it makes it so much easier. 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you're starting to get pretty hungry to whip up something. All the straight noodles were gone, the straight shaped noodles, and all that was left were all the fun shaped noodles. But I was people don't know that it's okay to take the fun shaped noodles, and that they cook the same way. You cook them for maybe a little bit longer if the noodle's a little bit thicker, and then it kind of breaks it up. So you have something new that's easy and approachable. But you can use any shaped noodle with any type of sauce. It's totally fine. So to get the timing ready for everything to be done at the same time, you have to think about how long everything takes and backtrack from there. If broccoli takes 5 minutes to steam, then you know that's going to be one of the last things you do. If you know your meat and chicken's going to take an hour, then you can toss that in the oven and do the other things while that chicken is cooking. So you have to think about how long it's going to cook it. You also have to think about, can it sit while it's warm, or is it going to continue to cook and overcook? Broccoli, for example, you cook it for 5 minutes. Let's say it takes you another 15 minutes to finish what you're doing. That's going to be overcooked by the time you sit to eat it. So know the things that can sit and wait. Know the things that can sit and cool, and not, like, cool makes it better. Like letting meat rest for 10, 15 minutes as it cools, totally fine. Roasted vegetables, sure, it'd be nice if they were piping hot, but if they're sitting on your roasting pan for 10 minutes, totally fine. It's really those delicate things that you don't want overcooked. I would say my final thought, being at home, you have to figure out what works for you. If one new recipe a day you find inspiring and that keeps you motivated in the kitchen, do that. If one recipe a week or month is enough for you to stay inspired, do that. You don't have to keep coming up with new things. But at the same time, you want to be brave in the kitchen, and you got to kind of have a don't care attitude sometimes, because mistakes will be made, right? You're going to mess up. I still mess up. I burnt a whole loaf of sourdough bread the other day, and I was devastated. I was like, yo, all this effort for sourdough bread. Damn, that sucks, you know? And so it happens to me still, but you know, I don't use it as my bar of like my skill level. I'm like, oh well, that was a mistake. Try again tomorrow. So I would say that's the big thing. Just if you mess up and it's a total failure, it's okay. Nobody's gonna know about it. It's not the Sistine Chapel. It's not permanent. It's not up on the wall forever. You get to take that doodle back down and doodle again tomorrow.